Now let me introduce our first panel of the summit, the Technology Ecoadvantage, Leveraging Indian Ecosystem. Please welcome Venkat Garimella, Vice President, Schneider Electric. Venkat has a wide experience in future-proofing businesses, incubating ideas, championing energy efficiency and sustainable development. Divya Tiwari, Principal Scientist and Advisor at Saahas. Divya is a supply chain subject matter expert, having done projects across industrial, life sciences, environment, and more. Deepak Ohlyan, Vice President, Dell Technologies. Deepak is a green crusader and has been instrumental in driving Dell's conservation and clean energy programs. This panel is moderated by Jayen Desai, Senior Director of Strategy and Transformation at VMware. He comes with 30 years of global experience across consulting, engineering, and technology. Over to you, Jayen.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Rohan, for those kind words, and extremely honored and privileged to host such a distinguished panel. And thank you. And thank you for all who have taken time on a Friday afternoon to join in and attend this flagship event, Tech for Sustainability today. And the focus for this panel is going to be Technology Eco-Advantage. And let me start with setting some context. So for companies like all on the call and beyond, I think it's time we understand that convergence of some of the technology and digitization roadmaps is probably the only way to accelerate the sustainable journey. And there are reasons. There are reasons you will know through the panel discussions why that needs to be done. So this mindset, what I'm calling it as a technology eco-advantage, is using some of the advanced technologies we have tested grounds in edutech, in fintech, can be leveraged more by joining forces on solving some large issues, which cannot be done otherwise. And this have a direct impact on the net zero goals, onwards to the ESG 2030 goals most of us have signed up to, both as individual corporates and as nations. So the ecosystem analysis case in point, for a company with 50 to 80,000 employees, a combination of process automation, carbon data transparency, and declaring those footprints, the entire circular product and service design, and sustainable business models, proof points show that there is a 45% to 70% reduction in emission just by relooking at some of these aspects, not even the entire supply chain or entire value stream across companies. And that's the key. That's the key we want to deep dive to. And using technology eco-advantage as a pivot, can this mindset help us to accelerate the roadmaps towards a more sustainable journey, and in the process, look at some of the traditional approaches, for example, digitized operation, digital product and service design, the entire gambit of cloud computing, IoT and the connectivity, onward to blockchain, and of course, using some of the AI and ML techniques to be more intelligent, be more smarter about it. This applicability combined can be used across the spectrum. And the esteemed panel today, we are going to deep dive with specific use cases so that we have two messages by the end of the panel. A, there is a potential. Two, beyond abstract, there are proof points to make this happen. And what is required then is to scale. So with that, I'm going to leave the floor now to talk to each one of this distinguished panel here, who will bring a very interesting perspective from the respective domains they handle and making a significant mark over the years. So I'll start with Venkat. Venkat, so you have been a crusader, not just because you are part of Schneider, but that's a privilege in itself, but being in the center of energy management. How do you see what has transpired so far? What are the opportunities and the challenges therein? Over to you, Venkat.
Yeah, hello. Hi, Jayen. Hope you are able to hear me and see me well. Good. Thanks, first of all, NASCOM and Jayen, to kind of invite me for this session. Very pleased to be with you all, with my other co-panelists, Deepak and Divya. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think I like the way Jayen kind of set the context, right? Technology certainly is going to be a very big opportunity for all of us to really address these sustainability and climate issues, right? Now, I'm coming from energy background, energy efficiency background. So maybe I'll give some insights around what is happening on the energy landscape. Just to share with you, in this 21st century, we are going to consume 40 times more energy than what we consumed in the previous century, right? And this is likely to put us onto the wrong trajectory of global warming, which is in excess of 3 degrees centigrade temperature rise of the planet, of course, on the base of 1850, 1900 pre-industrial era. So our thirst, our addiction to energy consumption is really going to have a big catastrophic impact to all of us. Why is this? Because 80% of total emissions that Jayen have been talking about is on account of energy consumption. Most of the energy that we consume is on account of burning fossil fuels. We burn fossil fuels for our mobility requirements. We burn fossil fuels in our manufacturing, in our industries. We burn also fossil fuels at our homes, in, let's say, in cooking our food and perhaps heating our homes in case if you have to heat, right? And of course, we also burn fossil fuels to generate electricity, which we use practically everywhere, right? So there's a huge dependence on fossil fuels, and this is kind of impacting in terms of huge 30 gigatons of CO2, let's say, in a year, right? So this is where we are, right? And this is not a sustainable situation. We can't live like this, right? Now, we all have seen the impact. I'll not go into all those things, all the climate change impact, the floods, the droughts, the extension of rainy season that we are going through in this country currently. You know, all of them is going to have huge impact across. Agriculture yield in the world is going to drop by 52%. More than 50% population is acute hunger. We want to push 100 million people to poverty, huge dependence, addiction. Sorry, I'm using the word addiction for our energy, our consumption of energy and fossil fuels. Now, what is the way out? I think that's exactly the crux of this discussion, technology. And let me give you some use cases of how we are looking at technology to really help us to get back to the right global warming temperature. Right, you know, the target for all of us on this in this century is to limit the global warming temperature by 1.5 degree towards the end of this century. Right, as I said right in the beginning, we are on the wrong trajectory of 3 degrees, so we need to really bring down the whole emissions by more than 50% actually by 2030 to really get back to this trajectory of 1.5 degree. And how do we do that? One, energy efficiency. You see, energy is being consumed everywhere. I just mentioned about it. At the same time, energy efficiency is also something that all of us can contribute. Frankly, let's accept you and me have created this mess, right? In our homes, in our offices, the way we travel, everything, we have created this mess, right? So it is, the onus is on us to kind of embrace energy efficiency. We have all the technological, let's say, solutions today available, triggered by the vast development and progress in digital. And this is going to really help us in, you know, uncovering the vast opportunities of energy efficiency. Just to give an example, best in class energy efficient buildings are more than 75% energy efficient compared to a normal building. Best in class hotels and hospitals are 50% more energy efficient than the normal average hotels and hospitals. Best in class steel manufacturing, you know, a very energy intensive sector, steel making. Best in class steel manufacturing can be 30 to 40% more energy efficient. So energy efficiency is indeed going to be a big enabler for us to really get back and kind of sort out the mess that we are in right now, right? Now, energy is, if you talk about energy, let's say electrical energy, electricity, first of all, Jayen, as you know, is not visible, right? And what is energy efficiency? Reducing what is not visible, right? So that is where the complexity comes in. And that's where digitalization of this entire energy sector is indeed a big opportunity. And you talked about all the big data, ML, and all of them. These are indeed the current technology landscape that is available if we have to adopt energy efficiency. So I will stop here to kind of putting on the table the importance of energy efficiency. And let me tell you, we don't have to wait for some great let's say patents or discovery and some great technology to come from somewhere. We have enough technology available at our disposal to be used in our buildings, data centers, mobility, offices. And you are seeing one of the biggest energy transition that is happening in the auto sector is the whole IC is now moving to electrical system mobility, right? So this is one way of kind of going back and reducing our energy consumption. Jayen, if I may take one more minute, there is another important area that we need to look into it over and above energy efficiency. That is electrification. Electricity is there for last 150 years. But today, you'll be surprised to know that electricity is only about 18 to 20% of the entire energy mix. Significant part of energy mix is fueled by burning fossil fuels. So I think it is important for us on one side to embrace energy efficiency using all the digital tech which is available to us. On the other side, we need to accelerate electrification. Why? Because electrification is that vector of energy which can be decarbonized on the supply side. You can put renewables, you can put solar, you can put wind, and you can decarbonize the supply or generation of electricity. You need not anymore burn fossil fuels to generate electricity. You can use it by renewable sources, right? So two things, energy efficiency and perhaps faster greenification and electrification is going to be helping us in our emission story. Jayen, sorry if I took a longer time, but I stop here.
No, I think it's very clear. And that also puts us in a little bit of uneasiness, which we should all feel by the end of this panel. So well spent time, I would say, Venkat. I'm going to come back to you on a couple of points of interest for the audience and for us collectively, but stay tuned. Let's change gears. And Venkat identified an area from energy conservation, use of fossil fuel, or rather alternative to fossil fuel, and kind of laid out a roadmap. But Divya comes from a very different angle to her role and contribution to the entire sustainability roadmap. I have known Divya now, if I'm not mistaken, for more than 5 years, and extremely delighted to have her, not just because of her just role in driving sustainability as a horizontal, but more so with the connection she has established, which is one of the themes for NASSCOM NPC this time. So I do want to hear, Divya, from you on the journey, more from coming from the angle you started the ESG journey, and more importantly, the challenges you see where there is a need for collaboration. So over to you, Divya. You're on mute. You have to unmute, Divya.
So thank you so much, Jayen, and I'm very happy to be here. My network is not somehow, working. There's a power issue here. I've moved to hotspot. So let me know if there are any issues. Maybe I'll switch off my camera, then at least people can hear. I am very keen that people hear. We rarely get an audience of this kind. So as Jayen said, I'm from an organization called Saahas. I'm basically a chemical engineer. I was in the corporate sector. Incidentally, being in Bangalore, I was in IT sector. The last job was with HP in supply chain analytics. And that's when Bangalore was going through its crisis of waste management. It continues, but that time it was in our faces because the contractors had stopped collecting waste. And that's when, we did a lot of work in our own apartment community in implementing source segregation. And I was very thrilled with the outcome. Well, like within a week, we had achieved 100% segregation for about 300 houses. And I thought, that's it. This is what is going to solve all the problems. And I was thinking, why can't everybody do this? This is so simple. And then, turn of events, 1 year later, I quit my job and I joined Saahas. And then the reality check happened that segregation is just one of the very, very first basic steps, very essential step, but it is still very basic and doesn't solve all our problems. Even if you segregate everything meticulously, even if you had kept all kinds of plastic, all kinds of paper separate, wet, yes, almost everything can be recycled, but dry, I increasingly see, I had joined Saahas in 2014, and at that time, the percentage of recovery that we had from the dry waste, it will be, maybe double of what we are able to do today, because there are so many materials, complex materials that we have begun to use, which are maybe technically not recyclable, but there are other economic and logistic issues. And that's where I come to this topic of technology and sustainability, because a lot of the challenges that we do face on the ground are often, at least, to partially addressed by technology. And since many of us in Saahas are coming from the corporate background and tech background, this has remained a key approach to bring in technology, to improve efficiency, to bring in transparency and accountability. So Saahas is a more than, it's been working for more than 2 decades. And we have seen a journey in which technology has played, I would say, a differentiator role for an organization like us. 20 years ago, if you thought of waste management, you will just think of the Raddiwala on the street shouting aloud, paper le do, plastic de do, okay? But from there to move to these systems where, you have IoT-based weighing machines, you have blockchain-based, traceability platform, you have AI-based material sorting facilities, is a huge transformation. And I'm not talking about some American companies. This is what we do. We personally deploy all these technologies on the ground to, do a better waste management, to, as I said, bring down cost, and most importantly, to improve dignity of the people who are working in this space. Even, me sitting as the principal scientist and advisor and past CEO, for me also to say that I work in the area of waste management is a delicate thing. For a lot of my elder family members, they can't digest that after a PhD, you are doing all this. And imagine, a young, graduate who probably is the first person who's got educated from his family to go back and say ki main kooda uthata hu, main kooda handle karta hu, is something which I'm sure he will be not wanting to after having done the kind of effort that he has put in his education. So technology helps us make the livelihood more dignified. We have seen a simple thing like providing a biometric attendance to our staff, to have GPS enabled vehicles with proper ID cards and uniform itself takes it to another level compared to, say, a waste picker who's picking up waste from the street. So technology has played, as I said, a lot of role. This is just from the tech angle, from the from the data and IT angle. But technology, obviously, the engineering technology plays a big role in how waste is handled, the material handling devices, how it is processed. So in that regard, also Saahas has been trying and adopting new technologies that have been coming. We were probably one of the first ones to install a OWC machine, which was, pulverizing the waste, so minimizing the manual handling of that waste. We were one of the first ones to set up a MRF facility where waste was not handled manually. It came on a conveyor belt, through a conveyor belt and a hopper, and then it was sorted manually, but they were sitting on a stool. It's not that, they were sitting on the ground and doing it. And the rate was much faster. Just to give you an example, if a manual sorting efficiency will be, say, 60 kgs per day per person, an MRF could double it up or triple it up based on the composition of the waste. So it's a huge change in the cost of operations. And if the cost of operation comes down, then many materials which have a poor economic viability, overall economic viability in terms of its recycling revenues, it improves, because if my cost of operations is less, then even at a lower revenue rate, I will be able to run it sustainability viably if the cost of operations is less. So, it has its impact, not just in terms of us earning little extra, but also being able to handle more quantity of waste and, ensuring it is getting recycled. There are other technologies also. Many of you might have heard of biogas. Biogas as a technology has existed for decades, but MSW, which is municipal solid waste, is a different ballgame, far more complex. So it has gone through a stage of evolution. Now I would say it is maturing. We are seeing some very good examples. Indore has set up one of the first large biogas facility, which is a 500 tons per day, and they will run some 300 buses with that, which is like, which is really true waste to energy, offering. But I would spell out a word of caution here, that not all technologies are benevolent. And we are, very particular about the whole idea of sustainability and life cycle analysis, its short-term and long-term impact. Is it taking out livelihoods? Is it, resulting in circular economy? Or is it, just disposing of waste at the lowest cost possible? So keeping all these aspects in mind, not everything is great. Just to, I would take a minute to explain two technologies which you all will be hearing about, and it is very important you understand a little bit more about these two technologies. One is the 24-hour composter, where wet waste is basically burnt. So it is very, very energy intensive, and the output is quite useless because, the beauty of compost is the live material in it, the microorganism. So when you burn it at 60-70 degrees, there's nothing live in it, and it is basically ash. So it is not yielding to what you wanted it to do. So not a great technology, being promoted heavily by the government of India. But you do it, make sure you don't pick it up without analyzing it clearly as to what it is doing. Second is waste to energy plants, which are also coming up. Bangalore itself is setting up 2-3 such plants. Waste to energy is a widely adopted technology in Western nations also, especially in Europe and Japan. But you can read up, their own experience has not been great. It has led to high levels of dioxins. And India, our experience has been terrible, not a single well-operating plant. Because the lax systems we have with respect to compliance, with respect to monitoring, this can create havoc. So, and it is completely against the whole idea of circular economy. So not a great, technology at all. So stating a word of caution that not all technologies are great. And while we are very much for technology, we want to make sure we choose the right ones. The other example I want to give is that, a lot of startup companies came in a few years ago, which were more into, replacing the Raddiwala. So you can order on the app and they will come and pick it up. But most of them have failed. There was a lot of euphoria around this that, now we have an app-based system, but they could hardly compete with the neighborhood Raddiwala, who was able to do this at a very low cost of operation. And he could also come at the beck of a call. You could just call him and he will turn up. So not only these tech companies, in a way, came in as a mid-layer, they also connected finally with the Raddiwala to provide that service. But because they came in as a mid-layer with high salary load, what the Raddiwala was able to earn from same activity actually got reduced. So, and in terms of larger amount of waste collected, no, that wasn't the case. These companies weren't viable if they started collecting low value waste. They were viable if they were only collecting PET bottle or newspaper. So you neither solved the environmental problem, you actually aggravated the social issues, because there was a huge livelihood dependence. There's a huge network of Raddiwalas in our country. And to come up with a system which is replacing them or, actually adding a layer in between and eating up their revenue margins is not a great technology solution. So while demand aggregation and, visibility of pricing and material is a great initiative and has a huge application in circular economy. I'll just give the example of Uber and Ola. They're basically nothing but circular economy because you're using same material, a car, by hundreds of people. So less people buy that car. Hence, the material consumption comes down for the same size of economy. So similar models can be evolved in various kinds of materials. You can have shared sewing machines, you could have shared lawn mowers, you could have shared washing machines, which will reduce the burden on material consumption while ensuring that your economy size doesn't reduce and the cost of usage is actually less. So even the poor people in the society can use those services. So from that angle, I would say these platforms are great. Third aspect where I would say technology has been a big boon for us is the social media. Reaching out to lakhs of people, and getting our word across, getting support from them, whether for funding or otherwise, it has been a big blessing. And during COVID, as it was for the IT companies, it was for us also. Because we had huge dispersed team all over the country to stay in touch with them, to maintain their morale. It was the IT tools and the meeting and the conference tools which helped us sustain through these 2 years. So yeah, so I'll end with that, Jayen. I'll be happy to take questions and any other specific. Yeah.
Thank you. I think what of definite interest is economies of scale. You touched upon even the next steps. So yes, you took a bit of time, but you laid it out pretty well. And I definitely know it has a clear message, and we will come back to that towards the end of this session. So thank you, Divya. And Deepak, thanks for waiting, but it always makes sense to get an infrastructure towards the end because it ties things up. And who better person to represent that with what you have achieved over the years. So more than the Dell story, I think the accolades which went behind and over setting industry benchmarks on what you have done in your role on sustainability would definitely be of interest. But I would like you to explain a bit more on infrastructure at scale, Deepak, if that is of relevance for this audience. So over to you, Deepak.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Jen. And great insights from Venkat and Divya. So Jen, firstly, thanks to you for even creating that entire forum where we started with, I think, 3 companies. I think now you're like 80 companies. It's a great movement you started. So sustainability for me is and I'm very passionate about it. And since I lived my life in the hill stations and the tea plantations in Darjeeling and Assam for like 12 years. And then I'm privileged to be in a place like Dell where I can work on my passion, which is sustainability, as well as blended with technology. So we've done a lot of work on technology, and sustainability is not something that it's a switch on of a button. It's a meaningful impact does not happen without a plan. So it's a journey. So this journey we started a couple of years back, and then of course Dell has a very robust and an aggressive 2030 moonshot goals where we've challenged to reduce scope 1 and 2 greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030. Source 75% of our electricity from renewable energies by 2030. And there's a whole list of activities that we've already planned. So when it comes to infrastructure and facilities, like Jen said, I'm proud that the India region, we've got all our sites green certified, whether through IGBC or LEED certifications. It's a journey we have started about many years ago, and now that I moved to Singapore and I manage a larger APJ portfolio, we're looking at a lot of interventions in technology for the other part of the region. So what we've got, an example I can share with you is in the India region, which is about 4 million square feet of space, we introduced sensors in all our equipment, right from the chillers to the sewage treatment plants. So every equipment is wired up, and we have live data and live feed coming in of how much our water consumption. So we kind of check map the entire water usage from the time it enters the building, from the time the sources that it came in, whether it's through our water harvesting systems, or from government, the power supply, how much water is being consumed in respective areas, and we ensure that we recycle 99% of all our water sources. So water, electricity, we monitor all our data centers and labs through these electronic meters right down to the rack level. That gives us enough data points to go back to the business and R&D units and show them data to tell them how they can be more in a journey of being more efficient. And I think another point is during the pandemic. I mean, of course, it was one of the worst phases of our lives, but it also kind of rebooted the earth in a certain way and accelerated technology. So all the plans that we had in the past on technology have all kind of boosted up across all locations. For us, so these sensors that we have in the India portfolio, across our portfolio, on our screens, whatever you want to see in the facility, whatever, right, from the AHUs to the chillers, you can see fans moving. The technician on the ground can even control and switch off a fan on the 6th floor without actually having to go there. So we have whatever facility manager was, right from air conditioning to critical systems management to what have you, it's there on the screen and it's all wired up. So since so much data is coming in, we don't know what to do with so much of data. And then we have a team in Dell, which is called the analytical team. They got involved, and then they are the ones who've now done predictive analysis. So all my budgeting for my energy costs is through the predictive analysis tools that the PAC team internally has set up, and we can monitor, and all our forecasting happens through that. So India is a great example, especially during the pandemic. My teams were able to monitor the facilities sitting at home during lockdowns and able to manage consumptions, able to manage power outages, and manage even the facilities while you're remote. And then, of course, we're looking at various other technologies, whether it's PoE, which is power over Ethernet. So all the lighting systems are on the server. So you can manage the lighting, you can manage occupancy, you can manage all of that. Then we've created an enterprise management system, which does everything from customer user interfaces to facility interfaces to BMSs, space utilization, space management, actionable data analytics, energy trends, IEQs. So the whole plethora of stuff that technology, we will leverage technology in our facilities, and it's a journey. And nobody can say we've done it all. And it's a great partnership internally. Also, I work with our sales OEMs teams who bring in various technologies to use, as well as we speak to our customers on our Dell and Dell solutions that we've implemented on our locations. And it's a journey right from the time we design the facility till the time we start operating the facility.
Great. So Venkat, Divya, and Deepak, right? I think the idea of your proof points was to convey a message that, yes, it is possible. And through your narrative, it is also obvious that there are opportunities which can be tapped more in an accelerated fashion, more orchestrated way. And my entire thesis around this on technology eco-advantage is we are not doing enough. And I can back it up. Yes, these are excellent case studies. We can count them on few fingers, but when we just step across, and I'll start with this proof point to be a little bit critical here, Divya, with you. There are team examples that beyond communities where you started, and that's where I had the privilege of meeting you first time, 2 states, 2 larger commercial establishments. When you reach to a point where technology is required at a state and at a government level, you know the challenges. And I'm coming to my question together for all of you in a round robin way. Venkat, same is the case. We are very conscious on energy efficiency, energy management within the confines of our personal life and corporate life. But then as soon as we step out, you'll see buildings and buildings with nobody around, wasting tons of power on signages, billboards, etc., etc. And Deepak, to your entire thesis and work, IoT-based sensing, building automation, remote management of employee management, facility management, you have done it all. Scale it 4x and then the things start cracking, right? The sensors are not available. You have to import. They don't talk to each other. The technology reaches a handicap. And then we start thinking, hey, can we partner more? Can we partner to scale? So next decade, to my mind, having proven ourselves in UPI, having proven ourselves in vaccine management and distribution, I see a very positive Bharat. But it needs a change. It needs a change in mindset. So in the next 5 to 6 minutes in round robin, could you give one sense of recommendation to all of us collectively? What can be done differently? We'll start with Deepak, you.
So I think to your question, it's technology will keep upgrading. So it's whatever you invest in has to be future ready, and then it's not siloed. It's not siloed solutions. You can't work on siloed solutions. You have to have holistic solutions. So like we started this seed from India, now it's APJ. Now we have global projects across, and it's something which is also being used, and Dell is also supporting customers on data centers and cooling systems and all of that. So it's not just limited to what we do internally. It is leveraging technology and staying abreast with whatever new changes that happen. If you look at PoE, it's really wonderful. You don't have to bank on your main raw power sources. It's Power over Ethernet. You can manage your lighting, you can manage the daytime lighting, you can manage the occupancy. That's linked to your air conditioning. So if you have low occupancy, your air conditioning kind of slows down, your fans shut off and not required. So technology is something that is evolving, and it'll continue to evolve. It's how we harness it, how do we plan better. At the same time, how do we share it with the larger partners and colleagues, and these forums that you set up, is how do we share in these respective forums of how each one of us is doing and how we can partner together.
That's an excellent call to action, and we have to leverage the partnership over the year which has been built up, and I'll talk about it later, Rohan as well. Divya, one recommendation to fastest to speed.
Yeah, Jayen, so the platform like you have created this, we need to bring on board more area-specific experts like Saahas and government. Because what we see that, while technology has given us some very good solutions to track two biggest problem of waste. One is tracking what each house is doing. Are they generating waste? Are they segregating waste? So you can have your, devices which can just scan it, NFI-based devices, which can scan and enter this data and can be done. It's little time consuming, a little expensive to begin with, but it still can be done, and it is, it is worth the effort. Second is that, tracing how the material moved. Did somebody dump it illegally in between? Did a construction and debris guy who was building, demolishing a building, dumped it in between? These are two things which can be, managed today with the way technology has advanced. But our government and our administration is living, 50 years ago. So their requirement, their scale needs to be understood. Tech solutions need to be customized, and government's capacity as at policy level, at the execution level and monitoring level has to be enhanced. Obviously, it will happen top down, but I would say forum like this, where you have the technology, I would say inventors and creators working closely with functional experts like Saahas and government, can be a game changer. That's what I would say.
That's an excellent insight. We end with Venkat, your words of wisdom.
Yeah, so Jayen, the way I see is that in the whole conversation of sustainability and mitigating the climate challenge, most often it is not the issue of technology. It is not the issue of perhaps awareness. There's a lot of awareness these days. Let's accept it. The issue is that we all feel that someone else will do it. My contribution, my story, this thing is only little. What difference I'm going to make? Someone else is going to do it. Maybe those government policies, maybe those, industry, who've been guzzling so much of energy or so much of waste they've been throwing. It's their job to do it. See the kind of mess they all created. I think it is time for us to see as to what we can do, right? And believe me, all of us in our homes, in our offices, in the way we live our life, if we can make some change, which is going to be more sustainable, which is going to be more climate friendly, indeed is going to collectively have a big impact, right? I'll end with this last thing. If you go to a place which sells, a shop which sells very high expensive, all those decorative items or porcelain items, you see something written there, right? You break it, you own it, right? I think that's exactly the spirit. We all are responsible for this mess that we have created, right? And better we own it to fix it. This is what I would say. And once we have this kind of approach, you will see all the wherewithal, you will see all the business case, use case, technology, all are available. I agree to what Deepak was saying. It is evolving. A lot of things will come our way for sure, but we don't have to wait. We continue what we are doing. We get on board and do our bit. That's what I would say, Jay. Back to you.
Excellent. Break it, own it. Do it, own it. Fantastic summary for the event and the panel.